Hello, it's Jimmy. Today I want to talk about home ownership. I want to give some examples from my life when I bought my first home. We're going to take a look at the numbers that were in play when I bought my house and translate them up to today's numbers. Now, I've been in my house for 16, 17 years, and it's worked out fine for me. But looking back, I think I was experiencing some of the same struggles or mental blocks that I see a lot of young people talking about today. It may just be that social media has kind of pushed these stories to the top, where, of course, anything negative seems to be the top priority, and then it becomes a self fulfilling prophecy. Now, I don't want young people to be discouraged. I just want to show kind of what my situation was using some inflation calculators to represent what is going on today. We just want to take a look and compare, see if the numbers play out to what today is. Because if it really is a situation where homes are unaffordable for young people just starting out, well, that's terrible. Maybe we need to look at how to make homes more affordable, or what are the alternatives. But if that isn't the case, then what's going on? Why do young people feel like they'll never own a home? It's one thing entirely to say, I don't want to own a home. I don't want to do the maintenance and all the things that come along with that. I'm perfectly happy being a renter somewhere, or letting someone else take care of all of that. That's completely different than people that desire to own a home, understanding that there's a lot of maintenance that goes with it. And they want to use that as not only their home, but an investment. Now, if you don't believe that a home should be an investment, that's fine, but it doesn't take away from the fact that homes do appreciate in value, and so therefore kind of fall into an investment class. Back in 2008 and the years before, when we started looking for a home, interest rates, strangely, were just about where they are today. Actually, today they're a little bit higher, and we'll see that here in a minute when I bring up the chart. The things that we needed to watch out for back then were bad players in the mortgage business, slimy realtors, and a lack of transparency. That seems to be kind of the same situation that we're in today. Although I would say price transparency is not as big of an issue. I mean, you can look up home prices very easily, histories of properties, the tax rolls, all of that is very easily attained. So that may not be quite an issue, or as big of an issue as it was for us back in 2008. You did have to kind of root around a little bit or rely more on your realtor. So going back to, perhaps there were some slimy players in real estate. Oh, yeah. I think a lot of what is blocking young people from buying homes today is this huge amount of debt that they are incurring. A lot of it is student loan debt, which is completely unnecessary. The biggest hurdle that I'm sensing is a sense of futility. Like, it's not even worth pursuing. Again, if you don't want a house because you just don't want to do the maintenance, that's fine. Saying that it's just never going to happen, not a good attitude. A couple of things I've noticed that might be influencing what people think is a reasonable home, of course, is media. Whenever I travel and I stay in a hotel, it's the only opportunity I have to watch cable TV or satellite or other things that are not free. Usually I gravitate towards watching House Hunters. It's an entertaining show if you want to see people that have unrealistic expectations. All right, let's take a peek at what my numbers were in 2008 when I bought my house. And these are my real numbers. I had to do a little digging around. Our household income, that was me and my wife's combined income, $39,127. I think that's about poverty level today. The house that we're in now, we paid $226,000 for. It was listed at $219,000, and then we had some seller closing costs rolled into that, which we ended up paying. The interest rate was 6.09, and we did a 30-year fixed. This was well before we knew anything about Dave Ramsey. The 30-year fixed was a better alternative than the adjustable rate mortgages that our original mortgage guy was pushing us towards. I was not at all comfortable with those, even though the rate was a little bit lower. The market was quite unstable. And I'm certainly glad we didn't do that, because that would have probably stretched us beyond what we were comfortable paying. And in the ensuing years, with the value of the property going down, that would have been a huge problem. Now, I, of course, follow the Ramsey principles now. I didn't know them then. The best practice is to have no more than 25% of your take-home pay go to your housing costs. That would be your principal and interest. At that time, it should have been no more than $815. If you look down here, our monthly payment for principal and interest only was $1,360. That's 52%. That's a little bit more than 25%. But at the time, that's what we did. I would not do that again right now. Knowing what I know, that's something I would have changed. That means we would have had to find a less expensive home. So now I'll take a look at the inflation adjusted numbers from 2007 to 2025. Now, I just showed you something that said 2008. Why am I saying 2007? Well, I have to go back to our adjusted gross income. What our mortgage rate was based on was our 2007 tax return. So the numbers from the year before. Another interesting thing, when we got our home, credit scores weren't factored in as much as they are now. You had to do manual underwriting. Now, if you follow the Ramsey principles, he talks about you don't need a credit score to buy a home. That's entirely true. That's a new thing, that people are getting mortgages based solely on their credit score. Years ago, you had to do what was called manual underwriting, and it's still a thing. It exists. The process is actually pretty easy. You take a purchaser's tax information from their prior year, perhaps a couple of pay stubs, any other sources of income, their bank statements as far as what they have in savings, and then you can kind of figure out what to do. The credit score is just a very lazy way of pointing people towards a mortgage rate. So today, our household income would be equivalent to $60,388. For the house price, I did put in that $226,000 into the inflation calculator, and I came up with a number that was lower than $400,000. But I decided to pick $400,000 because that's what the house price is today, at least according to my friend Zillow over here. Currently, interest rates are hovering around 6.8% for a 30-year fixed, assuming that I would have done the same thing. Now, of course, knowing what I know now, I would do a 15-year fixed where the payment and interest was no more than 25% of my take-home pay. But I'm just doing inflation adjusted for what was done in the past. Again, the 25% rule would mean that the house payment should be no more than $1,258. However, the equivalent today would be $2,608. Interestingly, it comes out to 52%. Again, even with the house price being more. So can people become homeowners today? Well, absolutely. I mean, looking at my numbers, inflation adjusted comes out pretty much the same. Again, I would not do 52% of our take-home pay for a house payment. But keep in mind, our incomes grew. So that $60,000 equivalent, as time rolled on, I mean, our incomes grew substantially from that, which helped accelerate paying the home off early. In all, we really only spent 15 years paying a 30-year mortgage. Some things I would recommend to help people if you're thinking about buying a home. And of course, I would encourage people to consider that, even if it's not on your radar right now. At least think through the possibilities. You may come to the conclusion you don't want a home. You don't want to be a homeowner. That's fine. But I don't want people to be discouraged. At least take a look at it and run your numbers so you know where you might be. The first thing is get rid of debt. Avoid it altogether. You don't really need it. You don't need a credit score. I'm proof of that. Debt just weighs you down in more ways than you can believe. And once you get rid of all your debt, if you do happen to have it, you have a completely different outlook on life. In fact, your outlook might be alien to most of the people around you, but trust me, it's a good thing. Secondly, I would recommend having a nice fat down payment. 100% would be nice, but if that is not something you can attain, 20% is very reasonable. And at 20%, for your mortgage, you will not have to pay private mortgage insurance if you do a conventional mortgage. What is private mortgage insurance, or PMI? That's insurance that you pay for in case you default on the loan. Then your bank or whoever's holding your mortgage doesn't get stuck holding the bag. That's a good deal for them. You're paying the premiums for an insurance policy that they benefit from, not you. So 20%, if you have 20% equity, I should say, in your property, you don't have to pay private mortgage insurance. Third, I would recommend you have realistic home expectations. There are some things that people think are dream homes or forever homes, and there's no such thing. Having realistic expectations will help you define your goals and what you actually need in a home. If you need 3 bedrooms, don't look at 2-bedroom homes just to save money. Look for 3 or 4-bedroom homes in a lower price range, which means you might have to look farther out from where you work or where you currently live. I would caution people to not try to compete with your peers. Be content with what you have and what you'll realistically be able to afford. You're the one that has to live in the house. Your friends aren't going to care if you can or cannot make the payment on it. After looking at these numbers, I believe that it is still possible for people to own a home. I mean, if my numbers pass through the inflation calculator and it's still the same percentage take home pay, which is twice what I would recommend, and it's still doable, then yes. Well, that's all I've got to say on the topic of buying a home. As always, thanks for watching, and I hope you're having a great day.